Hello, everybody. This is the Brett Davis podcast coming to you from Attorney King's studio in Coronado, California. I'm honored today, of course, to have Joe Little, who's somebody that I've been following for many, many years. And I've had the honor to share the stage with him and do a couple of MC events. And I followed his career, 17 Emmy Awards. You don't look that old. How did you do that?
I just paid off the right people, man. You got to know who just here's the check, just slide it across the table. That's how you get it done.
Well, you've had a very varied career. So one of your things that I see that you're passionate about, that you're proud of, is of course the coverage you did for the 9/11 story.
Mm-hmm.
You're only about 4 miles away from that whole thing.
Yeah, that was a. As journalists, you go through a career hoping to get the big story, and most of us will go our entire career and not cover the big story. And we're talking the ones that transcend time, the ones that change the history books, that become an entire book themselves. There's a JFK assassination, the moon landing. What else? I mean, Pearl Harbor. We're talking major stories. And now all journalists cover 9/11, but the ones who were at Ground Zero in New York City, the ones who were at the Pentagon in DC, and then the handful of us that were there in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I was just a cub reporter. I'm barely 2 years in, a little more than 2 years into my career, and I'm just there in the field doing a story with a Vietnam vet that has nothing to do with 9/11. And all of a sudden, plane crashes 4 miles away from us, and I was thrust into the biggest story of my life. And I will go, probably, God willing, I will go the rest of my career and not have to top 9/11. But to cover 9/11 on the front lines like that was it was an honor, to be honest with you, an absolute honor.
Well, I mean, I think one thing I like about your stories is they're very true to life. They're very community. They're very, we'll go as simplistic as something is very impactful, like Ron Morrison and Josie's turkey giveaway that they do every year. I mean, that's something that's every year has gotten bigger and bigger because there's a lot of people in need, and you've always covered those stories. And I think people need to hear good, inspirational stories like that.
Oh, you said two key words. The first word is story, and the second word is people. There's no story, and no offense to Ron and former Mayor Ron Morrison, now Councilman Ron Morrison, and his right-hand woman, Josie Flores Clark. The story is not them. The story are with people who are in line. Mm-hmm. The people who need that help from people who make donations during every Thanksgiving. The people who are struggling during the pandemic. The people who are just struggling day-to-day, pandemic or not. That's what I always try and focus on with my stories, are the people. If you wear a suit and tie and you were elected to office, yeah, you're a newsmaker. Yes, you make policy. You have a direct impact on thousands, if not millions of lives. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to telling the story of what decisions you're making or what you're doing for the community, it's all about the people who you are impacting, the people you are affecting, the people you are changing. And in order for my viewer to care about the story, I don't think many viewers can relate to a politician, can relate to a suit and tie. I think most viewers can relate to a normal person, a human being. And that's what I always try to put into my stories on a daily basis. If I know that there's going to be a news conference where there's a podium and a whole bunch of microphones sitting in front of there pointed, I know going into that very little, if any, video of that podium news conference will be part of my story, because that's a report. That's like information that you need, and I'll have that information. But the story about what they're talking about impacts real people, and that's a lost skill of going find the people who are impacted by those moments. I just burped. Cheers.
And I thought you're having your collegiate cup there in your hand where you went to college, of course.
Yes, my undergrad school. Yes, I need water or I'm going to pass out on you.
Was that New York?
George Mason is in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, Northern Virginia, but just outside the Beltway in the Washington, D.C. area.
That's a great area.
I played basketball there a long time ago.
And you scored some points.
I scored 2.
Yeah, but I said some.
But I'm in the NCAA books. I'm in the books.
I saw that. I said he scored some points. It doesn't matter how many, but you scored some.
And that's better than 99.9% of the population.
Hey,
I'll hang my hat on that sucker.
you're so bad. So
That was bad.
I know. No, I don't mean bad, but So when did you realize that, you wanted to go into journalism and you wanted to go into TV? Because I mean, that's not something you just typically somebody usually knows out of the gate, do they?
No, I was it was an evolution, to say the least. I really wanted to be an architect or an engineer. Then I was introduced to calculus, so we stopped doing that. And calculus is a whole other beast.
I remember calculus very well. That's the reason.
That's a joke, man. So, but when I was in high school, I was a basketball player and I was a meatball. And at the time, this is the 90s when Sports Center was king. That was the most popular show. They were doing news stories about Sports Center. Sports Center was on all the time. They were adding networks based on Sports Center. There was a TV show that was created because of Sports Center. It was king. And I wanted to be in Bristol, Connecticut, sitting next to Dan Patrick on the Sports Center desk. And, on top of this, my parents don't know anything about my career. My dad's a surgeon. My mom was a nurse. My older brother's a doctor. I'm like, and here comes the idiot son who wants to be a sportscaster. And
I was going to say you're the optimum success in their eyes, right?
Now I am. Yeah, now I'm the son now. I dedicated I invited my parents to an Emmy Awards and won a few that night. And like, hey, mom, dad, this is for you. That's when you get favorite son status. But no, so I went to George Mason because I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any idea about this life that I'm in now. I didn't have clue about what was the best school to go to. So I went to George Mason because it was near home, and they had they had some television stuff. I was like, well, okay, I'll go to there. And thank God I went to George Mason because it gave me a huge foundation for what I do, but I needed the journalism skills as well. So through an undergrad at George Mason, I found out that Syracuse University was also known as Sportscaster University. Every freaking sports guy on television went to Syracuse. Bob Costas, Mike Tirico, Marv Albert. Half the people at ESPN went to Syracuse. So I went to Syracuse hoping to just sort of get that pedigree in my system and get into sports. And thank God for a professor there named Hub Brown at Syracuse who verbally slapped me around and said, you're not going to do sports. You're going to go do news. You're going to go into news because it's going to make you a more well-rounded person. You'll have more skills. You'll be have a wider background of knowledge. And if you want to still do sports when you're done with Syracuse and you get into the business, by God, you will get into sports. So I focused on news, worked on my writing, my shooting, my editing, my on-camera presence. Still couldn't fix the face. It is what it is. But yeah, I got into news, and sure enough, he was right. Like 2 years later, I was a sports director in Central Pennsylvania and hated it. I hated every second of doing sports. It was just too narrow field. The people were not exactly the most fun to be around. You always have to work nights and weekends because that's when sports happens. So
sure.
Jump back in the news, and this has been the path pretty much hardcore since, well, it's been 1998. Since I got to Syracuse in 98, switched to news. I started my first professional job in 1999 in Hagerstown, Maryland, and got to San Diego in 2002, and I've been here ever since. So we're almost coming up on 20 years in San Diego, telling stories in San Diego.
One thing I like about your storytelling is right away you have a presence and you get the attention of people, and there's a credibility. There's just something very stoic about your stories and very to the point. I don't know what it is. I can't really put my finger on it, but you catch a lot of attention when you tell a story. I can't say that about a lot of people that do reporting.
I'm not going to, well, I like the fact that my stories look different. I like going to stories where I see the other TV stations there. I'm still competitive, still love sports. I still like to beat the garbage out of the competition. But I have a certain style. People who my stories over and over again, I have a certain style, visual storytelling. I like to have the sounds of the world in my stories. If you watch my story, you will see and hear things that you will not hear and see in other stories. You'll hear the sounds of the cars nearby. You'll hear if someone is cutting food on their plate. You'll hear the knife on the plate. You'll hear the chatter at the table. A lot of people just forego that information. They don't think it's part of the experience, but I like to bring people deeper, closer to my stories. And I do that with sound. I do that by putting my camera, my lens, taking eyeballs closer to the story. It's not about getting inside and being the story. It's just about putting the viewer inside the story.
It's almost like a form with the sound of vinyl, the imperfections and the realism. I love vinyl, and there's something real about vinyl, even though it's not perfect.
It's the white noise in between the notes that make vinyl impressive. That subtle scratch that you can barely hear, but when you listen for that, that's what makes vinyl. You don't get that with MP3 players, and you don't get with CDs, but that little noise that you have when that freaking needle hits the vinyl, that's beautiful music.
Do you listen to vinyl at all?
Negative. I don't have a record player, dude. I don't. But
I have one here with everything. I listen to vinyl. I love vinyl.
I don't have the space for that stuff, man. I think if I had my bachelor pad still, maybe I would have a whole wall decked out in vinyl and even frame some records. But no, I have fully embraced the digital world because I just don't have room for that stuff.
I got you. So I know.
I mean, this is a recorded podcast, so I was like, this is my wife's office, and she is an avid Superman collector.
No, I see that.
It's not just one wall, man. It goes all around me. And so I moved in with her a couple of years ago so we could start saving money for a house. So that's a whole other debacle.
Sure.
But I'm working out of her office because we're not in the TV station right now. And
I love it.
I really
I love Superman. I got a Superman quiz for you.
Oh boy, I'm screwed. All right, go ahead.
So where was Superman originated from? What city?
What city?
Yeah, where did the artist come up with the concept?
Oh, I have no clue, man. I know Superman came from Krypton but I don't know where Superman was originated from.
So I think it's Joe Schuler. I think was his name. I think, but I know the artist, and there was another one. There's two of them. Came from Cleveland.
Ah,
and actually, Metropolis is supposed to be Cleveland. Where he reported.
I've been to Cleveland.
So Cleveland is supposed to be Metropolis. And it was written in the 30s, man. That was a long time ago.
Back in the 30s, maybe, but in Cleveland, man, I spent a month there one weekend. So bad.
Anyway, we have people to watch from Cleveland, so he's actually just saying it was cold for him. He's not saying anything other than that.
No, I hate Cleveland. I'll tell you right now, I hate Cleveland. I got to go.
Okay, well, we got that off.
I got a general manager. My good buddy's a general manager at a TV station in Cleveland.
So anyway, that's my Superman gig. I know that they even have a Superman museum there. So,
is there like an actual town in like Illinois or something called like Metropolis? They changed it into Metropolis,
possibly,
or something. Or Smallville. I don't know. Smallville.
But so you've been in San Diego for a few years now, and how has it changed since you first got here as far as the news goes?
As far as the news goes,
how much changes have happened? I mean, the internet's really changed the way we do things, hasn't it?
You're talking about the industry itself?
Just reporting, telling your stories.
Well, I would say when I started in the business, traditionally, your traditional news crews at the KNSD, KGTV, KFMB, KUSI, and whatever the Fox station is, you'd have what's called traditional crews, where you would have a reporter and a photographer, two people going out to every single story. And sometimes if they had the live truck as well, there'd be an engineer in the truck. So you have three, maybe an intern. So sometimes going out to a story, you'd have four people rolling out to the story. In around 2006, 2008, as we headed towards the economic crisis, there was a lot of push and embracing of what's called multimedia journalists, one-man bands, people who shoot, write, edit, report, research all by themselves.
Wow.
And that's not a new concept, because in this business, when you start in the single A, if you will, of journalism and broadcast journalism, you go to the Hagerstown, Marylands of the world, where you it's called a one-man band, where you do all your own stunts all by yourself. And that's what we've all done. For me, though, it's something that I always embraced and enjoyed. So as the industry itself changed from this traditional two-person crew, a lot of stations started absorbing and embracing one-man bands like myself. So in 2007 at 10 News, I took a job at 2007 for a job that was like, this was made for me. They were calling them digital correspondents at the time at 10 News. And I saw that posting. It's like, that's what I want to do. I want complete control of my stories. I want to run out on my own, do the story, shoot it, write and edit. And I have legitimately, since 2007, I have done 99% of my stories by myself. And I've won 16 of my 17 Emmys by myself. I got my first Emmy with someone else 2 years ago, and that was very cool. It was a very great moment for me because I love the dude I worked with to get that Emmy. We did some very cool work together, but I was also very stingy and proud. I want to achieve this on my own and prove to the haters that you can do this, because there's a lot of people who hate what I represent. There's a lot of people who think I'm a threat to the industry. I'm not. There are a lot of people who think I can't do what Two People Crew do. On a regular basis, I smoke two-person crews.
You've already proven that. I mean, you don't win 17 Emmys by accident.
No, and I do work hard, and I'm constantly learning. You have to continue learning.
Sure.
I mean,
I don't see what the challenge would be with that, because I think what you do is refreshing. And at the end of the day, it's all about the story and how it's told and how unique it is.
Yeah, it's not, and it's not about me. It's never about me. It's all about the people in the story. Like today, I was at Southwestern College down in Chula Vista. I just came up there from there, and the story is all about them. It was all about the success they had during the pandemic at the local at the student-run newspaper, The Sun, and it was just all about them. I was so excited for them.
Sure.
I do appear in the story, but it's not about me. It's not about the station. It's about these people in this awful situation who are succeeding. And that's the way it should be for every single story.
We just gave Max Branscombe a Legendary Teachers Award. We had the first actual.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Max was honored. And, when I was starting junior college, I wrote for The Sun years ago.
Nice.
And so I have a history. We're doing some stories, and that was kind of my beginning of thinking about doing something like I'm doing now. And I never really took it serious, other than the fact that that's cool. I'd like to write for the paper. So I think when you meet those individuals or those things come about, they sometimes stay with you for a while, and you don't know where it's going to surface, but you've continued to learn. You've had great mentors. What's the one mentor other than the gentleman you talked about at the station, starting out, you remember? Was there a teacher?
Well, Hub Brown pointed me in the right direction. I would say that mentors, the thing about me being I try to be a mentor now, because when I was young in my 20s, I was too immature or too shy or too scared to have the cojones to go ask for a mentor, to go ask for help. Maybe I was too prideful or too scared to have my heart broken by saying, hey, can you look at my stuff and tell me what you think? And I'm like, I think I could have been where I'm at now in life 5 to 10 years earlier if I just swallowed my pride and asked for help. So I don't say that I have a mentor anymore, because what I am now, I sort of evolved by watching other people and studying what they do, and then later on in life really catching fire in my 30s by watching and joining an organization called the National Press Photographers Association, who apparently were just watching me on the speaking circuit and said, let's go get that guy. And then I started learning from them, and I joined a faculty where we teach in Norman, Oklahoma every March, except this past March and the March before it because of the pandemic. That has really opened my eyes. The people I teach with are probably the most important people in my career, because they have taught me so much incredible stuff. I will say vividly that the most eye-opening, most educational experience I've ever had likely came from John Larson, who is a local guy here in San Diego, he lives here in San Diego now, but he was a network reporter for NBC, worked in Seattle, worked in Alaska, worked for KPBS. He is just legendary. He's in my
I've heard the name. I've heard the name.
John Larson is, and he told one story, and the story it's called Mansfield, and you should look it up on YouTube after you're done watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, go to YouTube and look up John Larson Mansfield. And beyond the storytelling, there was also the technical aspects of how they told the story, how they shot it. And literally when I saw that story and I reverse engineered it with John's help, it just changed my life. And literally I have been sprinting through stories ever since then. It's so easy for me to tell the story and open up to people, where I see other people just treading water. I see reporters who are not storytellers. They're just reporters who are just out there spewing facts at you, thinking they're doing a good job, and they're not. I have this cool sunlight going right across my face there now. Right.
A mustache.
I'm gonna close the shades real quick. There we go. A little active podcast here.
So the thing that's nice is you've got to the situation now where you're actually mentoring and teaching, like you mentioned a little bit earlier. Didn't you just recently do something locally?
I am constantly teaching. Like just this morning, I was on a Zoom call with Cal State Fullerton,
right,
doing a Zoom presentation with a bunch of college students who are getting ready to take their first steps into the real world. And I gave them tips on setting up their resumes, on what to say, how to do, when to do it, but also just like a dose of reality. Like, here, guys, I mean, a lot of college students are just smoking crack when they think that they're going to come out of college and start working in Los Angeles, or they come out of college and start working in San Diego. No, this is like Major League Baseball, where you're not even going to start in single A. You're going to go down to the rookie ball in Tijuana. You're going to go to the rookie ball in Puerto Rico. You're going to go play baseball in Germany. And I don't think baseball even exists in Germany. So you got to start super small, then go to single A, then go to double A, then triple A, then go to the major leagues. I'm in the major leagues now. And it's a long haul. And to have that eye open, it's like laid on the table for these poor college students who think they're going to start making six figures in Los Angeles when they step out of school. Like, no, you should embrace cup of noodles in Top Ramen, because you're going to make no money in Hagerstown, Maryland. There are very, very, very few Fernando Tatises in the world who come out their rookie year and are mega stars.
Sure.
It does not exist.
Right.
It happened, but the reality is this is a tough life we lead. And so I had that lecture with them this morning. I think I'm talking to Syracuse next month. I'm talking to the Michigan Association of Broadcasters and the Oklahoma Association of Broadcasters on consecutive days. The pandemic has been tough for traveling and talking to groups in person and teaching in person. But before that, I open myself up to anyone who ever asks for help. I will never, ever turn away someone who has the guts to reach out to me and say, hey, man, can you critique this? Hey, man, can you give me some advice on this? If they don't take the advice, that's on them, and that's fine. But
sure.
I think because I was too stupid myself to ask for help and too naive to know that there's people out there to help me, I promised myself I would never, ever turn anyone away who simply wanted help.
Well, I mean, you can look at it as failure, but I think failure in our country, there's too much emphasis put on success and failure. And I think you learn more from your failures than you do your successes.
Dude, I am the king of failure.
Me too. I thought I was the biggest failure.
No, Jude, the way you pick yourself up, the way you make, it's like, oh, okay, well, I messed that up. I better make sure I never do that again. Well, that's what you learn in the Hagerstowns of the world. That's what you learn in single A baseball, is like, okay, I screwed that up. Don't do that again. You don't want to come out of the gates and work in Los Angeles where 3 million people are watching a newscast and you screw up. That's bad.
Yeah. At least you won't be forgotten.
No. Sometimes you want that mistake to be forgotten.
So are you going to be doing more lectures and more teaching? It sounds like that's where you're going, possibly.
I will every year for the past 10, 12 years, I have traveled the country in between my full-time job as a reporter, teaching, whether it be at a TV station, a conference, or a college. But this is not, teaching will never be a full, or consulting, if you will never, ever be a full-time gig for me until I can't pick my camera up anymore, until I can't tell stories for San Diego. I will not be, I mean, I might be a full-time college professor or consultant, if you will, when I'm done on the streets here in San Diego. But my camera's not that, I mean, the cameras keep getting smaller and smaller. That's my camera for those people watching the video.
It's a monster. Looks like a weapon.
Well, it's not that big anymore. I mean,
well, you wait now that you're holding. Yeah, it's not as big as I remember. You're right.
Yeah, the guys who work as photographers in San Diego, they're just photographers. Their camera is twice as big. Well, you know, in a few years, the camera's going to mean we might be just doing this, like just shooting with our iPhones.
Maybe it'll be glasses.
Yeah, yeah. We don't know. We don't know. We never thought in the 90s or 80s we'd be shooting. I mean, there are television stations that have the reporters shooting stories on their iPhones.
Right.
It's not ideal. I mean, I have these 2 GoPros right here. These are part of my normal arsenal. I mean, this thing shoots better video than that big thing. So
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but maybe this will extend my career. But when I will continue shooting stories, this will be my primary source of income for as close to retirement as I can get. And then I will hang it up and go teach somewhere, God willing, that my knowledge is still applicable to whatever's going on in 20 plus years.
I would love to attend one of your seminars or your lectures and one of your events you got coming up. I would think it'd be great.
You would just heckle.
I'd have spitwads. I'd be shooting spitwads at you during the whole thing. No, I'm just teasing. I would love to come watch one of your talks. I made you choke.
Yummy. I went down the windpipe there. My live teaching, when I teach live, it's like a show and a stand-up comedy routine because they're not recorded, so there's no evidence, and they're colorful. I use lots of colorful metaphors, and they're rated R. They're rated R because it's raw, it's real, it's entertaining. I want people to be on the edge of their seat. So it's a show. It's not for kids. It's not for some adults too. I've been trying to clean up the performance quite a bit lately, but it's entertaining. I like to make people laugh. I think people respond well to laughter.
Yeah.
Deprecating, I make fun of myself. I make fun of everybody. It's just it's not offensive. It's loud, colorful, and fast. So I would love it. I mean, I'd love it. Anybody comes because I get paid for those.
That's a good thing. Your wife appreciates that, doesn't she? She can add to the Superman collection.
Nope, I hide that money.
Well, Joe Little, I appreciate you taking time to be on our humble little podcast in Coronado.
Oh, it's an honor. I could talk about myself all the time.
We're gonna have to get together and grab some ribs.
Ribs and beer.
Come down to Coronado, or I'll meet you somewhere, and we can do some ribs and some beer somewhere.
Oh man, I'm in, brother. I'm in. Thank you for having me, Brett. I really appreciate it, man.
I look forward to watching all the great things you're doing and all the students you're going to help, and I look forward to watching you in person in your stand-up routine.
You're welcome anytime that someone's got me on stage.
What's a good website people can go to view some of the things that you're doing right now?
Just all my stories are posted on NBC7.com, and you can find links directly to my stories just by going to my Facebook page. I post all my stories on my Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/Joe Little MMJ for Multimedia Journalist. And so I post all my stories there, and hopefully when people start watching them, they can see that they are different and they are focused on the people in our community.
Well, Professor Little, I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate you.
You take care of yourself. You
too, my friend. Have a great night.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank my sponsors again, Attorney King, for everything he does and for sponsoring our show. Of course, IB Fitness in Marina, the Mogul Mommy, who will be doing her podcast later tonight. And you talk about raw. She's really raw and very informative and real. Of course, I want to thank Indian Motorcycle, which I'm going to be getting an Indian very soon. Just don't tell my wife about it because she's not supposed to know. She's not listening.
She's in the studio with you.
She's having a beer right now. She's over in the corner. It's okay. Nothing, Sarah. Nothing. It's okay. And of course, I'd like to thank, I said IB Fitness. Of course, I'd like to say, George Jackson, thank you for everything you do, because the gym has been a phenomenal sponsor from day one, and I appreciate everything you do. And of course, is there anybody else that I left out? Can you think of? Did I cover everybody? That's it. Everybody have a great night. Joe Little, thank you so much. And we'll see you around.
Yeah, bud.
Take care, brother.